Hi friends, what's up? It's Jaime here. Welcome back to another Fangirl Fridays video. Now you may recall in a previous Fangirl Fridays video, I did a very brief overview of the Pendant of Hyacinth book trilogy. I finished the first book, Awakened, about a month ago at this point, and I've been working on making a review ever since. The reason why it's taken me so long to put this review together in the first place is because I have spent so long deliberating, going back and forth, how I was going to structure this video because there's a lot to talk about this book, and I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to narrow it all down, but I finally figured it out. So as promised, here is my honest review of book 1, Awakened. I'd like to preface this video with two things. One, if you're wondering to yourself, hey, you said this is a Fangirl Fridays video, but Jaime, it's a Wednesday. Today's a Wednesday. And you are correct. I am splitting up this review into two parts. And so what I decided I was going to do, at first I was going to put the first part of this review on a Friday and then have the second part be on the following Friday, but I kind of decided that I didn't want to make you guys wait that long for the entire review, so this is how we're going to do it. This first part is going up on Wednesday, and then the second part is going to go up on Friday and be like an actual Fangirl Fridays, I guess. So here we are doing a Fangirl Fridays, but on a Wednesday. And the second thing I wanted to cover is that this is going to be a spoilers review. Obviously, I'm not going to be rehashing every single little detail from book 1 because there's a lot and we don't have time for that. But everything that I'm going to cover in this review will be a spoiler. So if you haven't finished reading the book or you plan on reading the book but haven't done so yet, I would hold off on watching this review until you have read the entire book. Also, really quickly before we start, as far as names go, I'm going to do my very, very best with pronunciation, but I already know that there are some names in particular that I'm really going to struggle with, so please forgive me for that. I am trying my best. Also, please, Riley, if you're watching this, I doubt that you are, but maybe you are, and if you are, please, please post a pronunciation guide. That would be really helpful for the future, because I do plan on making videos about book 2 and book 3 when they eventually come out. So if you've already read the entire book, or you don't really care about spoilers, feel free to keep watching. And now, let us get into the review. Okay, so for this review, I'm going to be doing a very brief recap of the very end of the book. Then I'm going to give some general critiques that I have of the book. And then I'm going to be going over how I feel about all the characters. So where we leave off in the end of the book is that Hazel, one of our main protagonists, has this funky little necklace, one might call it a pendant, ooh, and they discover that they can use this pendant to transform nightmares back into dreams. And so they do what any normal 14-year-old would do, and that is decide that they are the chosen one and that they have to go on an adventure to save the world, and also, which means that they have to leave home without telling anyone, and yeah, so, you know, normal 14-year-old things. As for the rest of our main cast, Ariel has abdicated the throne to Anya so that he can run away from home and bring Hazel back to Slope's End. And meanwhile, while all this is happening, Talia almost gets killed by a nightmare but is ultimately saved by Hazel, and so she witnesses the process of, you know, the pendant being able to transform nightmares back into dreams. Ariel, my poor baby, is understandably furious that this literal child not only left him tied to a tree, which I'm still trying to figure out the logistics of that, but anyway, not only left him tied to a tree, but is also the reason that he basically gave up his entire livelihood because he was worried that they were in danger because of him. And as everybody is arguing about what to do next, because Talia wants to bring Hazel back with her to Eos because she's like, this is fucking groundbreaking. Someone who could transform nightmares back into dreams, this is gonna save the fucking world. And Ariel is like, they are literally 14 years old. No, they're not going back with you to wherever, you stranger. And because Ariel doesn't know that Talia is Talia at this point because she's wearing a hood, they get into a little scuffle. The hood comes off. Oh my god, Talia. And bada bing, bada boom, our main trio has been reunited. And that's where the book leaves us. I really like that ending. I think that, you know, having the end be the reveal to Ariel, because I think we all basically knew, oh, that's Talia when we were reading that, but have that be the reveal at the end, and that's just where the book stops. I thought that was really good. And now I know I also skipped over a lot of plot just now, but I really wanted to dedicate more of the bulk of this review to talking about the characters, which will also help me like, you know, go over some major plot points anyway, so I count that as a win-win. Before we get to talking about the characters, first I just wanted to give some of my general critiques about the book. The first thing that I noticed that kind of bothered me was the formatting. I felt like was a little weird. It was more jarring at the beginning when I was first reading the book, and I kind of adapted to it by the end of it, but that was just something that it kind of threw me off at some parts, because what I mean is, like, I feel like it was kind of difficult to figure out like which character was talking sometimes. Not always, again, this wasn't always an issue, but like in some parts, again, especially in the beginning, it was kind of hard to figure out who was talking. And then I also feel like some of the paragraphs could have been formatted a little bit better. Like, I feel like there were sometimes sentences at the beginning or like at the end of a paragraph that could have been their own separate paragraph, if that makes sense. I'm not gonna harp on it too much because this is Riley's first book, and I imagine that trying to figure out the structure and like formatting of the book when you're doing it for the first time is really difficult. And I don't really have any room to talk about this because the closest thing I've ever written to like a book format is the fucking fanfiction I wrote when I was 14. So I really have no room to talk about that. But yeah, so that was one big thing I noticed. Another thing that I didn't like was the Ariel Talia breakup scene. It's not because I didn't want them to break up or like whatever. Like, nah, fuck that. I'm here for the drama. Like, obviously, like, yes, the breakup was sad, but like, I'm here for the drama. The issue I had more so with the breakup scene was just kind of the circumstances leading up to it. I just kind of felt like the reason for the breakup kind of came out of nowhere, like the situation, I mean. Like, the reason why Talia and Ariel break up is because they get into this fight about the subconscious forest, and Ariel is basically just too stubborn and prideful to admit that he doesn't know as much about the subconscious forest as Talia, somebody who literally grew up next to it, like has lived next to it for her entire life, right? Like, that's what happens. Now, granted, this is all happening in the prologue, and the prologue's only 36 pages long, so that's not a lot of time to establish Ariel and Talia as separate characters, and then also their relationship, and then also their inevitable breakup. So I get that they were kind of like, you know, crammed for time here. But I feel like that kind of ends up softballing the breakup scene, because, so we all know the reason why Ariel comes to fantasy in the first place is because he doesn't know anything about fantasy and he wants to learn more about it because he feels like as the prince of Knowledge Terrace, he should know these things, right? So to have Ariel first be like to Talia, like, oh my gosh, fantasy person, please help me because I'm a big dummy and I want to be more educated about your clan's culture and everything and all that, right? To then suddenly be like, actually, I'm smarter than you, I know everything about your clan and your culture better than you do because I read books. I don't know, it kind of felt very jarring to me and kind of like out of character, because, okay, so I feel like you can play the angle that Ariel thinks that he's smarter than everyone else. Like, that's a good angle to play. But the fact that he was so willing to learn from Talia when he first meets her, to then, again, only a few pages later, be like, JK, I'm smarter than you because I read books. I don't know. That just, it felt like, it just felt out of character for me. Again, the fact that he went to fantasy in the first place just kind of shows how Ariel is willing to admit that he's wrong when he's wrong. So again, just like the whole breakup scene, it felt kind of inconsistent with his character. It very much felt like, it's like, well, we need them to break up. And so, I don't know, it just kind of felt a little rushed. Again, I understand that the prologue's not very long, and I imagine Riley didn't want it to drag too much, but I don't know, it felt a little rushed to me personally. Another criticism I have of the book is the relationship between Chet and Max. Like, okay, as you will find out later in this review, I really do not like Chet, and I feel kind of indifferent towards Max. However, putting all of that aside, I feel like their relationship was very rushed, because, like, okay, so I feel like having them get together, you know, like immediately after like the whole publicly humiliating Ariel situation, like, I don't know, that felt kind of rushed and weird to me, because the whole reason why they did all that bullshit in the first place was because Chet was angry that, you know, that Julia didn't like him back, which we will talk about my feelings more about that situation later. But yeah, so that was the reason why they did all of that bullshit, right? And so, like, you know, I feel like it kind of, by having Chet and Max get together, like, almost immediately after that whole mess, I feel like it kind of reduces, like, it kind of softballs the reason for why they even did any of it in the first place. Like, I don't know. It just didn't really make any sense to me. Also, I feel like Chet, personally, I feel like Chet did not work hard enough to get back into Max's good graces. I don't know, maybe there was some behind the scenes stuff that we didn't see, but I feel like if there was, we should have seen that, because, like, I don't know, I get that they're only like minor, like, secondary characters, but, like, I don't know, I feel like if there is, like, some stuff that happened behind the scenes, that would have been helpful to kind of make the relationship more believable to me. And also, I get that, like, Max would be quick to forgive Chet because he's in love with him, like, that's well established, like, I understand that. But again, I don't know. I feel like, personally, Max should have had a little bit more self-respect and made Chet work for it more. I think that if they, like, ended this book, like, at least back on somewhat of good terms, at least back on speaking terms, that would have been fine. And then kind of have them, you know, get into a relationship in, like, book 2 or book 3, that would have been more okay for me, personally. But again, maybe that's just a personal thing. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think about this relationship. Okay, so now that I've gotten all my critiques of the book out of the way, I really am very excited to jump into talking about the characters, because I have a lot to say about the characters. If you are familiar with this series, with the book, you would know that there are a lot of characters in the Pendant of Hyacinth. Most of them are secondary or minor, but a lot of them are still pretty memorable and worth mentioning. Now, for the sake of trying to keep this section from being an hour long, so this is what we're gonna do. There are a lot of characters I want to cover. 10, well, technically 11 that I want to go in more depth about, but there are still, like, 16 other characters that I want to at least mention. So for those other 16, I am going to rapid fire them. So here we go. 16 characters that I wanted to talk about, or at least thought were worth mentioning, that aren't a part of the main cast. King Niall and Queen Song. I love them. I love them separately. I love them together. I really love their love story. I think it perfectly encapsulates who they are as characters, even though we don't really get to spend a lot of time with them, and you could just really tell that they really love their kids. Also, my favorite song moment is her telling Sheila the story of her and Niall, like, falling in love and eventually getting married and getting together and, like, all that. I thought that was a really sweet moment. Chai and Crimson, I really like them. I really love their dynamic with Ariel when he was in Slopes End, particularly Chai and Ariel. I also really appreciate, and I think is really cool, that, like, Crimson stayed with Chai throughout, like, her pregnancy and just sticking by her side in general, even after Chai essentially chose Jonathan over Crimson. Like, I think it's just, it really is a testament to, like, Crimson's loyalty, because literally everything she said about Jonathan turned out to be true, and she, instead of being like, I told you so, she might have been like that, but she's still stuck with Chai, and I think that's a really good testament to who she is as a person. I just feel really bad for the two of them right now, because, you know, their kid has run off, thinking, like, you know, they're gonna go save the world, and, like, they didn't say anything to them before they left, so, like, I just feel really bad for them. My heart goes out to them right now. Nanami. I really love Nanami. Next to Hazel, she is my favorite of the Slopes End crew. I really loved her dynamic with Ariel. I feel like she provided a really good balance to, like, all the chaotic energy that Ariel had to deal with from Hazel, Maku, and Monty. I also really liked her conversation with Ariel about his feelings for Talia. I thought that was a really sweet moment. Maku and Monty. I really loved Maku's prank war with Ariel. I thought that was hilarious. It took me a while to warm up to Maku, like, in general, because I'm not really, like, into, like, tsundere characters. They're not usually my cup of tea, but Maku's cool. I like them. As for Monty, I don't really have much of an opinion about him because he doesn't really say much, so I didn't really feel like I got a good grasp of his character, but I do like his scenes with Maku, so he's cool. Also, really quickly, I really want to know how Maku and Talia know each other. They might have said that in the book, but I don't remember if they did or not. But if they didn't, I'm really curious to know how they know each other and how they became friends, because that's a very interesting relationship dynamic going on there. Cass, Leo, and Julia. I don't really have an opinion on Cass. They're just kind of there. I do appreciate that even though Leo took part in the plot to publicly humiliate Ariel, that he did try to rectify the situation in the end, so I can respect him for that. And I love it when anyone tells Chet off and calls him out on his bullshit, so I also respect Julia. Caleb and Xander, the guards who were sent to bring Ariel back home. I love them. They were so funny. I felt a little bad for them because they were just trying to do their jobs and like also thinking in the grand scheme that obviously the Kendall family is very worried about where Ariel is. So it's like obviously like the situation is serious, but I like the scene where Ariel is like flirting with them as Felix and they're trying so hard to not get flustered and establish a sense of authority and seriousness and just absolutely failing. It was hilarious. They are a riot. I really like them a lot. Esme, we don't really get to see a lot of her in this book, but when we do, I wanted to give her a hug. She seems very sweet, even though I don't really have that much of a further opinion on her, but I'm very excited to see more of her in book 2, and I'm excited to see her relationship with Hazel. Jupiter, I want to give him a hug. Like, literally, this man was ready to die just for a chance to bond with a dream. Oh my gosh. Like, someone, please, Riley, give him a dream. And if not in book 2, in book 3, please give this man a happy ending. Like, Jesus Christ, man. And finally, Indigo and Matic. I don't really have an opinion on either of these characters because we don't get to really spend a lot of time with them in this book, but I am excited to get to know them better in book 2 since we'll be in Eos. And I also will say that next to Talia, Indigo has my favorite character design of all the Knights of Eos. Hi friends, just hopping in really quickly to let you guys know. So I realized as I was editing actually the second part of this Pendant of Hyacinth review video, that second part was getting really long, so I had to move some of those like sections from that video into this video to kind of better balance them out, which is why I didn't like properly introduce Chet and Max and Jonathan as like secondary characters. So if you're wondering why that seems a little weird, that's why. Anyway, back to the video. Okay, next we're gonna talk about Max. I kind of went on a bit of a roller coaster with how I feel about Max. At first I liked him, then I hated him, and now I just kind of feel meh about him. Like, but the thing that really infuriated me about Max is that, like, I can't believe that you, like, basically committed treason for Chet? And also, your mom works in such close proximity to the royal family. Like, there's just no way that she's not going to be affected, not only professionally, but also personally, by the fact that you were literally a co-conspirator to publicly humiliate the Prince of Knowledge, Terrence, and subsequently tarnish his reputation. Are you out of your mind? Like, did you just not think or, like, care about how this mess was going to affect not only your own family, but also the royal family? Like, clearly not, because you did it anyway. And yes, to Max's credit, he did call out Chet on his bullshit eventually, but honestly, I don't really feel like that's worth singing his praises about because, like, no shit. Like, it's not like he was being this big hero or anything. Like, he was basically just saying things that, like, literally everybody else who had called Chet out beforehand had already said. Like, I get that it, like, means more coming from Max than just, like, anybody else for Chet, but, like, still. But yeah, so it's not really like Max did anything particularly special. Also, I just hate Chet, so fuck you, Chet. I don't know. I guess it's cool that Max, in the end, helped Ariel escape Knowledge Terror so that he could go after Hazel. But to me, I was like, I don't know. I feel like that was the least he could do. I feel like he's going to need to work a little harder to get back in my good graces. But maybe that's just me. Honestly, again, right now, I'm just kind of indifferent towards Max. I don't really like him or hate him. He's just kind of there to me now. Oh boy. Here we go. If you couldn't tell by me literally saying fuck Chet in the last section, I am not a fan of Chet. Not at all. Not in the slightest. I cannot stand this son of a bitch. I think he is genuinely, like, next to Jay, the most insufferable character in this whole book series. Like, he makes me angry. He makes me very angry. Chet is easily my least favorite character next to Jay. They're literally tied for last place for me. Like, that is how much I cannot stand Chet. Because let's break down the whole publicly humiliate Ariel and tarnish his reputation plot. So Chet decides to go after Ariel after he finds out that Julia, the girl he has a crush on Ariel. So Chet is angry that Ariel is the subject of Julia's affections, even though Ariel literally doesn't even know that Julia exists. And he also has this like general attitude of like, oh, the royal family, they think they're better than everyone else, so I hate them. Which is what Chet thinks gives him enough grounds to deceive Ariel, get him drunk, which then puts him in a vulnerable state, record him in said vulnerable state, and post it for everyone to see, which will publicly humiliate him and tarnish his reputation, all because a girl didn't like him back. This man was ready to destroy Ariel's life because his ego was so fragile that he could not handle the prospect of Julia not liking him back. Again, let me make it abundantly clear that everything that Ariel went through in the beginning of this book is all because this motherfucker Chet couldn't get a girl to like him back. I'm sorry. Chet makes me so angry. Also, it just boggles my mind how not only did Chet come up with this plan and think that any of it was a good idea, but then he goes and drags all his poor friends into his bullshit. Like, I know I was giving Max shit before, but like, even I felt bad for him at some parts because he was clearly only doing all this to make Chet happy. But like, also, Chet literally used Max. Like, he literally used the fact like that Max is the son of somebody who works for Ariel's family in order to gain access to Ariel. Like, that's really fucked up to me. That's really fucked up. Max, you deserve so much better. Chet is not worth it. Anyway, I'll round out this section by saying the same thing I said at the end of Max's. I guess it's cool that Chet did contribute to the plan to help Ariel escape so he could go after Hazel. But that's like, especially from Chet, that's like bare minimum shit that we're talking about here. So he really doesn't get any brownie points from me the same way that Max did. Like, at least Max is like, at least I somewhat tolerate Max. I do not tolerate Chet at all. But you know what? I do actually have one good thing to say about Chet. And that's that his sister is adorable. Fuck you, Chet. Moving on. Next, I want to talk about Jonathan Ambrose, my favorite little grumpy blacksmith, and also spoilers, but everything I've talked about is a spoiler, so if you've gotten this far and you're like, I'm sorry. But Jonathan is Hazel's biological father, and I actually really like Jonathan more than I expected myself to, and it's not that I expected to hate him, it's just that Jonathan was very, like, you know, kind of in the background for me. Like, there's only that, like, one scene of him in the book 1 trailer. There hadn't been a lot of art for him, so he didn't really, like, stand out to me very much, so I wasn't really, like, paying attention to him, which I'm sure Riley did on purpose, which was very smart. But yeah, I actually really like him a lot. I love his dynamic with Hazel. I love how when he first meets Hazel, he wants nothing to do with them, but, you know, Hazel being Hazel does get Jonathan to open up. And I really liked, like, their first, like, meeting scene. I thought it was really cute. Though he does actually warm up to Hazel relatively quickly, even if it is kind of against his will, because Hazel just kind of has that effect on people. But honestly, again, that both makes it funnier and also sweeter for me. I really like it when they meet, and I really like that he, like, starts teaching, Hazel how to use the bow and arrow. I thought that was also really cool. I also really liked how when it was revealed that Jonathan is Hazel's biological father, and that when Hazel came to confront Jonathan about, like, being like, you're my dad, I really liked how Jonathan didn't close himself off again. I feel like that would have been really easy for him to do, considering the fact that he literally left Chai like 14 years ago. But I really like that he was actually very open to talking to Hazel and explaining why he left. I thought that was a really great moment. But yeah, I really like Jonathan. I really like that in his own way, he is trying to kind of like be a father to Hazel despite being absent from their life for so long and have a relationship with them. I don't really have much else to say about him. I think he's really cool, and I'm also glad that he didn't die. So yeah. Now those are all the minor characters that I want to talk about. This is also where I'm gonna leave this first part of the video. But again, just stay tuned for Friday. I'm gonna be uploading the second part of this Pendant of Hyacinth book 1 review. So if there's, I know there are characters, trust me, I know that there are so many characters I still haven't talked about, so many secondary characters. I haven't even really talked about the main like trio yet. We will talk about them in the second part of this review. But for now, this is where I'm going to leave the review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comments any of your thoughts that you might have of the Pendant of Hyacinth book, if you've read it, if you're looking to read it. Again, I mean, if you're looking to read it and you haven't read it, this is a spoilers review, so sorry. But just let me know down below any thoughts you might have. And if there's any, because I know there are also a bunch of minor characters that I did not talk about like at all and will not talk about in this review, again just for the sake of time. If you want to talk about those, I'm willing to talk about those characters in the comments. I just didn't really feel like they were necessary to bring up in this video. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in part 2 of this Pendant of Hyacinth book 1 review. Bye guys. Also, really quickly, don't forget to follow Riley on Instagram at RileyQuinnArt, and also the official Pendant of Hyacinth Instagram account at the Pendant of Hyacinth. Okay, thanks guys.